I'd like to welcome Thrawn's Revenge to this episode of Crossing the Streams. Welcome to you, Thrawn. How's it going? How are you feeling about this?
Ooh, excited, nervous. I'm always nervous. My natural state is nervous. So
Thank you for coming on here. It's been an absolute pleasure getting to, see your streams. I've been lurking in a lot of them lately. I apologize for not saying a whole lot. There's definitely some wonderful stuff going on your channel.
yeah, so I'm Thrawn's Revenge. I am heavily influenced by Star Wars. My content is mostly Lego designing on Studio. My community, I'd say, is very well connected to the VTuber community since that's kind of where I started from. I had a lot of friends who were VTubers who were like, hey, your content is good. You should just stream it. And I was like, yeah, sure, why not? And that's kind of how this all started in terms of Twitch.
Excellent. And how often do you stream?
I try to stream once or twice a week, usually at about 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. I try to hit the Tuesday, Thursdays. Fluctuates a lot. I'm really bad at keeping a proper schedule.
Fair, fair. You describe your channel as a lot of Lego design. You work in studio. How long have you been doing that on stream?
I want to say a year plus. I started studio proper 2-ish years ago, 2.5 years ago, after having someone ask for instructions for one of my models, which is kind of how all of that started. And it got to the point where I was like, I might as well give it a shot and see how it goes.
I see. You were doing people were asking for your directions. I guess I'd love to back it up a little bit and find out more about how you got into Lego and what kind of led up to this.
Yeah, I started Lego when I was 3. That is what my parents tell me. I even remember what my first Lego set was. It was set 6453-1, the Comlink Cruiser. My parents got it for me and helped me assemble it. And I kind of was into Lego ever since then. It was the main toy I focused on when I was younger, and I've kind of just kept going at it ever since then. The more like professional stuff that I've been doing, posting it online, making instructions and all that, also started around the middle of the pandemic because I had, a lot of time on my hands. So I kind of just fully dove into that and have continued to do it ever since then.
That's incredible. I'm very curious. So you mentioned that you haven't really stopped. Does that mean you never had any kind of dark ages in terms of Lego?
Not really. I have Legos all over my desk usually. Even when I'm like trying to clean, I'll find Legos as I go. So I'm a huge proponent of table scrap builds. I'll just randomly play around with parts and see what I can come up with a shape. And sometimes that'll become a build. Sometimes that'll become a technique that I'll use later. I have Legos in my hands right now.
Understandable, understandable. I actually, same here with my desk. I always have Lego on it. There's always a brick or a piece here and there that I end up playing with it. You started doing, your own designs and mocks and things like that. You said it was mostly around the pandemic time. Was that due to having more time in general, or something that you decided that you wanted to kind of take on independent of the pandemic?
I mean, I've been making mocks for like a long time. As like a kid, I would build my own stuff. I was never at a point often that I was comfortable to share them
Hmm.
until the pandemic started. And again, I had a lot of free time. So I was like, I'll just post all of this on Reddit and see what people think. And a lot of people ended up really liking it. So I just kind of kept going and seeing like, what else would they like that I have?
That's really incredible.
And then over time, I started to have my friends being like, hey, if you want to take this more professionally and get it to a bigger audience, you should get an Instagram. I was really against it for a long time until my friend who has an Instagram account for his dog was like, look at these numbers, look at what we're getting. Just do it. You have nothing to lose.
So ever so briefly Flickr, and then Reddit, and then some Instagram. How active are you in the Lego subreddit these days?
I'm fairly active. I spend a lot more time in the Lego Star Wars subreddit. And then I also spend in some much smaller subreddits. There is the Lego Star Wars custom community and the Lego Star Wars mock help community. I spend a lot of time there trying to help them navigate the difficulties of designing.
For those that aren't really, involved with them, would you recommend that as a place to kind of get either inspiration or more info on, mocks that people make in that realm, or would you recommend
Yeah,
any other?
absolutely. I would also recommend like getting in Discord servers for sure. I am in the Digilug Discord server, which is the digital Lego user group, where
Mhm.
everyone's either using Mecha Bricks or Studio, and we all post our models there, discuss different techniques, discuss the issues of digital building versus real building. I'm also in the Brick Labs Discord, a fantastic Discord if you're into Star Wars or a lot of like professional mock making. There's some fantastic users there. This I think Discord actually, if you want like immediate responses, Discord is
Mhm.
the best place to get some help with mock creation for sure.
All good resources, it sounds like. Yeah, so you do some commission work. How much of your time spent is doing commissions now?
Ooh, in terms of the Lego stuff, I'd say it's like a good 75% is commission work. And it's a lot of fun. I absolutely love it. It's super easy to like just, they send me the information they would like here's the stats, here's the lore information, here's what I would like it to do. And then I get back to them with like, here's roughly how long it could take, here's roughly how long it could cost. I don't know exactly because every model is different. The complexity will greatly change the price, and I'm willing to fluctuate how much I charge them as well. Yeah, it's really fun. I really enjoy it. It adds on top of the work that I already do, so it's nice to have that extra income. I'm one of those rare people who can say my hobby pays me back to continue with my hobby, which is fantastic.
That's really cool to hear, that you're able to turn, what you really enjoy doing into something that, gives back. And it sounds like, the commission side of it has been very fruitful for you in terms of being able to do this sort of thing. That's really cool. With going by the hour, roughly, I know they vary in terms of size and complexity, but on average, how many hours do you spend on a commission?
On average, it's between about 10 and 20.
So, you've been doing, this digital design, working in studio and doing commissions for folks. When you first picked that up, what was some of the biggest challenges for you while you were trying to kind of learn all that?
I'd say the biggest challenge for sure was making instructions. Instruction work is a lot of work, especially in digital programs. It's a lot easier when you have the model physically. You can kind of understand how to take it apart and be able to know like which piece comes together and how it comes together.
Mhm.
Doing that digitally is a lot harder and it's a lot of work. When I first started making instructions, I actually just flipped through all my Lego instructions booklets and tried
Mhm.
to like figure out how they do things, and I tried to emulate it as best as possible because I'm assuming that the user like it's safe to assume the user is going to be older, but it's not always true, and some people are going to be younger who will be buying my model, so I want to try to make it as easy to read as possible where I can.
That's some great advice. Very cool. Very cool. Now, because you do a lot of this on Twitch, how does that impact the work that you do while you're designing live?
Um, it doesn't impact it too much. It's mostly just extends the time a little bit, but I tend to cut off part of the time when I charge the person. It's like, oh, if the stream was 3 hours long, but I only spent an actual 2.5 hours doing work, then I usually tell them like, hey, I'm only charging this much because I was doing it on stream.
In terms of taking feedback from others who are looking at your work, especially during a Twitch stream, how has that has that affected the outcome of some of your work?
Absolutely, absolutely. It's affected it only positively because I'd say that the people who do look at my work, I think are very nice and give constructive criticism really well and recommendations well. And I tend to more often than not take them. They tend to be right. There's sometimes where I'm like, oh, I disagree with that. I prefer it to look that way because of X, Y, or Z. It's cheaper, it weighs less, it looks more smooth, or I like the transition better. Often I'll tend to take the criticism and the suggestions because it more often than not will make the model look better. And so I feel my builds have gotten better because of that. And that makes me a better builder to just learn from others and how they do things, because then your tool belt of designing is just bigger every time.
That's really good to hear. I think that that is probably what makes it so unique in terms of being able to do this live is getting that input from others in real time. As someone who streams and makes, designs and mocks as part of the core of your content, how is that different than most other Lego content creators?
I'd say the difference is, well, first off, I don't have my camera usually. because it's all digital. So I'd say that's a big difference. Is I'm all digital. Everything's focused on my screen, which
Hmm.
is difficult sometimes. I feel like I probably would do better if I had my camera on, so people could see me and the funny faces I make probably while building. I'd say the main difference, right, is like it's a lot of creativity. Is that's kind of what you're selling to the audience? Is you're telling them like, hey, this is what I can do, watch me do it. Maybe it's interesting for you. So I think I'm less close to brick building streamers who, build on stream, build sets on stream, or that kind of stuff, and more closer to like art streamers who do digital art on stream.
Hmm.
Because it's kind of, I'm in a sense painting with bricks pretty much. So I feel like my audience can be a little different because of that. But it's still Legos, right? So some people from the Lego community who watch brick builders are interested to see that aspect of Lego. The customization, the doing your own thing. I know
Right.
there are some who do custom mocks, and I'd say I'm also closer to them for sure. The
Uh-huh.
main difference is they do it IRL, so they have the actual pieces, and I don't because I don't
Yeah.
have the space for that yet. Or like for example, I made a model where there was grass, and I should have rotated all the grass individually to kind of get that random grass undulation texture. Uh,
Hmm.
if there's hundreds of blades of grass, you have to manually click each one and rotate it into a position that looks good and have it not hit each other.
Yeah.
If you were doing that IRL, that's much easier to do.
Yeah. In what situations would you recommend digital versus physical to get started?
I feel like I would recommend digital for trying new techniques that you haven't used before. If you just don't have those parts, you can just do it digitally and see how that looks and see how that feels, and then decide in the future, oh, would I be willing to get the parts to attempt that? So I think like stuff like that, right? It's like, I don't
Right.
have the parts. I don't want to buy the parts. I want to
Yeah.
know how this looks or how this works. Just do it digitally and then decide, oh, is it worth buying these parts? And then the fantastic part of digital, right? You can get the XML file, the
Hmm.
file of all the parts, put that into Bricklink, buy all the parts.
Very cool. Very cool. As someone who is, an active mock builder designer, does digital, does studio on stream. How do you feel what sets Thrawn's Revenge apart from other mock builders or other digital designers?
I'd say the thing that differentiates me is that, well, first off, I do mostly Star Wars. Most of my commissions are Star Wars. Most of what I love to build is Star Wars. So you'll see a lot of Star Wars content. I love Star Wars, so I'm going to keep doing it, whether people watch it or not. I think the other thing is that I like to do the super obscure. I don't like to do models that I feel someone else has already done because they've probably done it better. A lot of what I like to do for mocks is I'll look around and see, has anyone attempted this before? And if they have attempted it, do I feel I could do better? Because I don't want to go, right, like let's say for example, someone was like, hey, could you make an ATST? There are hundreds of ATSTs to choose from, a lot of which I would consider better than what I could come up with. So I don't want to go into that space of like little fish in a huge ocean. I'd prefer to be the big fish in a small pond. Kind of how I look at my mock making. So I'll always prefer to choose something that shows up in a comic once, something that is referenced in a book three times, something that has a rough sketch, and that's all there is. I feel that is much more exciting because it brings to light the obscure, the unknown, and that to me is more fun to like tell people like, hey, you've never heard of this, here it is, it's in Lego form, if you want it you can go buy it, and now you're aware of its existence.
That's very cool. I like that approach. Is there a given, mock or design that you're particularly proud of?
I'd say I'm very proud of my all-terrain anti-air model. I'd say that one's a lot of fun. It took a lot of time to build. It's 4,400 parts, which is massive. I think it weighs about like 10 pounds. I have ordered all the parts from Evitz. It should be arriving within the next couple of weeks. And then when that arrives, I'm going to build it IRL, which will be a blast. But I'm super proud of that one because I made it, it looks almost perfect to the video game it comes from. And
Yeah.
I couldn't be happier with that outcome. And then my most recent one, the Star Viper, which is a pirate starfighter, Also super happy with how that turned out. That was the one that I, charged the person less. I put my whole heart and soul into that one because I wanted it to be perfect, or as perfect as I could get it. But I'd say those two for sure are ones that I'm really, really proud of. I'm proud of a lot of my mocks. A lot of my older mocks, I'm less proud of. I, look back and I'm like, man, I would just redesign this completely. I'd redo this. I'd redo that. I'd redo that. And sometimes I do that and go back and redesign things as needed, or someone will redesign it for me, and I will ask them like, "Hey, is it okay if I can use this? Is it okay if I sell this?" Those kind of go about that, or redesign other people's mocks. That's also really fun. Is like
Mm.
put my own twist on someone else's work. I think is also super fun as long as I get permission. Of course, I always ask permission.
Echo Bricks in chat asks, when designing, do you make a decision not to use really expensive pieces, colors in case you want to build it in real life?
Yes, I do that all the time. Especially when you're making a commission model, you have to keep in mind that at some point, some person is going to want to build this, and that is a conscious decision you have to have of like, is the piece necessary? Like, does the shape and design and structure get ruined if I switch this piece out for a different one? And then at that point, you have to just take the hit and know, like, hey, that piece is like $7. I can't replace it. There's nothing I can do about it. And then other times it's like, the interior of the model can change drastically compared to the exterior, right? If let's say the model is, for example, me and Luke Skydragon just finished the Yuzian Vong Coral Skipper. That
Hmm.
model is purple. Purple is a very, very expensive color. Most of those
Yeah.
scents are 40 cents a piece, but that means the inside should be the least expensive. So you can make it black, blue, red, green, doesn't matter because you don't see it when you build. So you always make sure that the internals are multicolored, rainbow colored, just like how Lego does it. Because it makes the instructions easier to read, it makes it more fun because it's colorful, and then it makes it cheaper because if, let's say, a blue piece is like a cent and a purple piece is 40 cents, you've saved 39 cents. You do that through the whole model, you'll get a good chunk of the price out of the model. So that is something you have to be aware of. Sometimes, again, you don't have an option. It's the only piece, or it's the only color, or it's super obscure. I try to sometimes do part substitutions if it's really bad, like, oh, that piece is $20. Here's an alternate version to make it cheaper. But
Hmm.
that's not, always possible. But I try my best to have that as an option.
That's something that I don't think a lot of people really realize or think about on the outside. So thank you for that insight. How often do you collaborate in general when it comes to this sort of thing?
I haven't done it often, but I've started to do it a lot now because I feel it's more interesting. I think it's more fun to
Yeah.
have another person there and like try to discuss our thought processes or how we build and compare it to each other, and two heads are better than one. So having two people there is a blast. I've wanted to get into it after I saw Brick Vault, UCCS Slave One and UCCS Millennium Falcon, because
Hmm.
the list of contributors on those was like 3 or 4 people for a single model. And I was like, how in the world do you have so many people working on the same model?
Yeah.
And luckily, some of those people are in the Brick Labs Discord. And so I reached out to them and was like, hey, how did this work? How did you go about this? What was the process for this? And they talked to me a little bit about that process. And I was like, you know what? I want to do this too. So
Yeah.
this is my third collab model that I've recently finished, was the Yuzian Von Coral Skipper. Another collab model I'm working with as Guardian Studios is E.C. Henry's rendition of the Porsche Pegasus. We are getting really close to finishing that one. It is a massive model at like 3,500 parts. Another model I did was with Scruffy Brick Herder, who makes a lot of uglies on Twitch. They're the starfighters that are kind of cobbled together by pirates. TIE fighter
Yeah.
lands, X-wing lands. You take the parts of both and throw them together, and you got a spaceship. So we did a collab model as well, and so I'm trying to get more and more into working with other people because it's good for my content, it's good for their content. It makes it more fun when there's another person on my stream if I'm able to do that. Having two people kind of discuss live the building process, I think, is really interesting for the viewers for sure. And it gets more chat activity, right? I'm talking, the other person's talking, we're all discussing, chatting about Star Wars.
How common is that in the design and digital design world to collaborate on projects
Um,
like that.
that kind of collaboration I think is really cool. Making models together is really cool. There's artists I know, like 3D artists or 2D artists, or like animators where you would work with them and they would animate your model. They would make a sketch of your model. That kind of collaboration I've seen as well. And it's just interesting to kind of, mix different mediums together with Lego, I think is really neat. I know one builder who's like a mech builder. He has a company that traces his models when he takes a picture and they make it into like a 2D anime sticker, which is super cool. Or
Yeah.
another one that does like tiny little they're three stud builds. Like the people are three studs, and so all the builds are based off of that like measurement. They'll animate scenes for them using their builds, and that's super cool. I've been actually looking for people to make animations of my models because I want
Oh
to do
yeah.
that. I have no animation skills.
I didn't even know that that was as common as you're describing. That's really awesome. When you talk about this, it's really cool to hear. Are there any particular other designers, animators, or anyone in this circle that you would love to just collaborate with?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like modelers like Jarek, I absolutely love Jarek's work. He is an incredible designer. The way he makes his shapes and his scales and his techniques are just so unique. The same with Inhert Lego. He's fantastic. He's made some models for either New Element. They're both fantastic builders. I've done some work with Hamish, who did some work on the Brick Vaults UCCS gunship. He's
Hmm.
made not gunship, Millennium Falcon. He's made stickers for me for some of my models, where when you buy the model on Rebrickable, it will come with a UCS sticker that you could put on a plaque to make it look like a UCS model, which is super cool. And I'm incredibly grateful that he was willing to even take any time to do that. The mock community making thing, the whole mock building community is very willing to help you all the time.
Yeah.
And so I always feel like I have to give back to that when someone's like, "Oh, I can't figure this out." I'll easily spend, a couple of hours on studio and try to make something and be like, "Hey, what about this as an option?" Or like, you could use this piece or that piece, or maybe try this or that color or that texture. It's all about supporting each other for better growth.
And we already touched on this a little bit, but what do you find to be the most challenging thing about generating content?
Yeah, that definitely is a challenge of solely because it's like, oh, he's just working on a model. He's not really talking much back. That's a little boring. There's not much I could do about it. I have a very strict policy on how I design my setup for Twitch. I don't like clutter. I really like simplicity. So, a lot of people will have the kind of interactivity in their Twitch, and it's not a bad thing, but I want the sole focus to be what I am doing and not something else as a distraction.
Hmm.
So the downside is all the weight is on my back. Like it is my job to carry the stream and
Yeah.
figure out like to make it interesting for other people. Which is it has pressures in it, and it means that sometimes my content might not be for a certain person, but that's okay. I'd prefer it to be that way. Or sometimes I have nothing to build. That's the worst, is when I have no ideas, I can't think of something, and then that's usually where I'll either play games or maybe I'm too tired to do a proper stream and I'll play games instead.
When it comes to, because sometimes you don't feel like maybe working on a commission, or like you said, maybe you just don't feel like doing the same thing you usually do. What keeps you motivated?
Usually just breaks. That's sometimes why my schedule is a little everywhere. Sometimes I don't feel like it,
Hmm.
and so I'll go do something else, or maybe I'll design off stream. But the other thing is that the motivation partially is like, oh, I'm designing anyways. I should just stream it. The motivation is just like also partially, I love Legos. I don't think that's going to be going away anytime soon. So because I've done it for so long, I love it. It's a lot of fun. It's a fantastic creative outlet for me. So, I'm always down to just go back to making something, designing something, or like sometimes, I'll like wake up at night and be like, oh, I just thought of a great technique idea, and test it out on studio and then get back to it later on stream and be like, hey, I made this off stream. Take a look at what I thought up, or like I worked on this off stream and stuff like that.
Everything we've covered so far, I mean, it just sounds like you've got pretty good amount of experience now doing what you do, designing Lego models in general, doing it on stream. Is there anything that you would tell a person who is like, I really enjoy, doing some digital design, but they want to take the leap into Twitch?
That's a hard question. Honestly, I'm not really sure. I mean, I kind of just dove into it and no expectations. And when I started, not that many people really watched. It was mostly like, the friends that I made from Twitch stuff, so they'd, be around lurking a little bit. So I guess expect a slow start for sure. Expect that not a lot of people will be there, and that's okay. If they're interested, they'll be there, and if they're not, they won't. They won't. And that's just. But it's all about like starting, right? Making stuff, doing things, and make what you love. Make what is fun to you, and as long as you are having fun, then other people will also have fun.
How do you think your own content has grown since you've started?
I'd say the mocks have been getting better, that's for sure.
Uh-huh.
My building style has greatly changed and evolved, especially with taking the suggestions of other people. Super helped make me a better builder for sure. And watching other people build or looking at other people build, collaborating with other builders, definitely has elevated the mocks themselves. In terms of content, I think that'd be hard to say. I feel like my YouTube channel is still the same.
Sure.
The positive is I've been given some more content right from other people. Right, I got reached out by a company called WeBricks. So I was like, yeah, sure, here's a model that you could send me, send it over, I'll make a video on it, and that's a video for next week, right? And as long as I keep working, I feel I get more options of content to make, right? People will reach out to me with suggestions or ideas or stuff like that, and the more I grow, I feel my pool of options has grown with it because of just recommendations. And as a person who has, I feel, run out of physical models to show on YouTube, that's great. I don't have the money to be buying a $300 model every time to show, because
Definitely.
then I'm stuck
Yeah.
with a $300 model that's just sitting in my shelf collecting dust.
Echo Bricks asks, do Lego ever use techniques that you've never seen before in their sets, or are they behind the mock builders in their designs?
Yeah, Lego has definitely used techniques that I've never seen before. That's one of the benefits of constantly buying Lego sets is you'll learn. You'll learn just from watching Lego do things, and I think that's great. Is Lego themselves? I mean, they are the ones who make the bricks. They're a great source of inspiration of like how to tackle a problem or how to get a certain shape. So you don't have to just learn from other mock makers. You can learn from the company themselves because they're always making new products. Their designers are professionals. That's why they're paid the big bucks and they work at Lego.
Mevitz Bricks asks, do you ever stream building the designs that you do?
Yes, I have. The downside of buying the designs and building them is that they're expensive. As you would know from the one that I bought for me recently,
Yeah, yeah.
it's not always cheap. And that's kind of like my biggest hurdle. And that's one of the reasons that I so vehemently push towards selling instructions, trying to work with companies, is to get the money back and use that money to buy models IRL because I want all of them. I can't afford all of them.
Yeah.
That's the problem.
I'm really curious because we've been talking a bit about how you support the hobby, right? You do some commissions for the designs and you sell instructions and things like that. Have you ever thought about setting up a Patreon?
I have a Ko-Fi
Oh,
that I
awesome.
do horribly at promoting,
Oh, okay.
because I don't know how to use it.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
the big issue is of like one of the reasons I don't do Patreon is because like I'm really, I'd say, in the know with a lot of the art world. A lot of artists left Patreon for their
Fair.
policy changes.
Yeah.
I was in full support of them. I completely agree that that's just not, Patreon should not be doing that. I don't agree with their reasoning, and so I wasn't willing to use Patreon because of that.
Fair.
So I do
Yeah,
have a
yeah.
Ko-Fi. The biggest issue is, right, it's just me. I have
Yeah.
a lot of work that I have to do for my Instagram. I have a lot of work that I have to do for my Rebrickable that I'm behind on. I have the designs that I do. I have the streams that I do. I have the YouTube content that I
Yeah.
do. I work with the companies to make models and kits and stuff. I'm spread thin enough that like Ko-Fi kind of takes a backseat. It's a place where you can support me, but the content on there, I don't know what to do with it.
that answers my next question was how to best support you. So,
Yeah.
that would be instructions. There
It's mostly
yeah,
instructions is the biggest one. Commissions as well if you're ever interested. And oh, there's that weird superhero character that I'd like a little brickhead of, or there's that thing that I would like a custom kit of. That kind of stuff is a great way to support me. That's on the more expensive side. And then the other way is of course instructions is a great way. Kofi, if you'd prefer not to buy instructions, throw a couple of dollars my way there as well. And then of course, like watching my YouTube content, subscribing to that, watching my Instagram content, and following and all that jazz usually would be,
okay.
the non-monetary way of supporting me would be, just following what I do and enjoying what I do and just hanging out.
Sounds like you got a lot of plates spinning. There's a lot of going on there. There's a lot of
Yeah.
things that you're up to. What is next for Thrawn's Revenge in terms of things that you're working on, and what to expect in terms of content and or uh models or designs that you're making?
Next, I got two commission models that I will be working on shortly. One is the V-Wing Airspeeder, which is a very unusual shaped speeder fighter kind of deal. Another one is the M-Wing, which shows up in a single comic book. It's a hodgepodge of Y-Wing parts made into an M shape. So those two models are coming soon. I finished the Yuzi and Vaughn Coral Skipper recently. I posted that on my Instagram today. That will be getting instructions soon. I hope to buy the Star Viper at some point now that that is fully done. I want to build it. I want it IRL, and then I'd be comfortable posting those instructions because I don't know if that model works, and I would love to find out if it works. Because if it doesn't work, I'm gonna have to figure out how to make it work. And in terms of like IRL stuff, I'm trying to go to my lug meetings more often, so I'm trying to show up to those. And then conventions, starting to become convention time, so I'm going to Brickfest in my neck of the woods, which will be in August. Then I want to try to sign up for Emerald City Comic Con in Seattle to show some of my Star Wars models there. And then in the first weekend of October will be the BrickCon, where I will be bringing as many models as I can fit in the back of my car. And I will be there for that convention as well. And then on top of that, I hit 1,000 followers on Instagram, which is awesome. I will be starting a competition on Monday where anyone can enter. The barrier of entry I made as low as humanly possible so anyone can get in. It's super easy. It is a 30-part build challenge where you are supposed to use 30 parts or less to design your own custom Star Wars vehicle, Star Wars tank, Star Wars fighter, Star Wars ship, Star Wars droid, some sort of object, non-living object, and you will submit that on Instagram or my Discord. And there are 4 prizes and there are 2 stages. So it'll be a lot of fun to see the entries for that, and I'm going to make some really interesting content for that, which is why there's 2 stages. And yeah, that's kind of the coming up stuff.
That's exciting. There's a ton of things going on, and it looks like, there's a lot to expect.
So I'll be posting it on my Instagram on Monday. I'll be posting it on my YouTube on Monday. Is you have to be subscribed to the YouTube channel, and you have to post the model either on my Discord or on Instagram with the hashtag that I will be making. 30 parts or less. Colors don't matter. You can just write, oh, this should be this color, this should be that color. I'm trying to
Sure.
make it as open to everyone as possible so that even people who don't have a lot of Lego or who aren't incredible mock builders, they have a way to enter and they have a way to win just as much as anyone else. And then the voting will be left to the public.
That's exciting. Sounds like there's a lot going on. Get in on that contest. Definitely a lot of cool things coming from Thrawn. Well, great. We learned a lot about you today, Thrawn. I really appreciate you coming on, and thank you for being a guest on this episode.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, of course. I guess, this leads us to the final piece of the episode, which is I often ask the guest if they have any parting words or what they would like to say as their final words on the show.
Yeah, thank you for having me on again. I love Lego. I've loved Lego for a long time, so I'll keep doing this until something happens where I can't do it. Hopefully that doesn't happen. So expect more models, expect more streams, expect the continuation of the YouTube channel, hopefully some more partnerships in the future, more collabs. I want to grow more, do more, meet more people, interact with more. So just reach out if you got an idea, reach out if you got an interest or something you'd like to work together on. I would love to hear from you, and my DMs on Discord and Instagram are always open and I check them often.
Thank you again. So concludes the episode proper.
Thank you so much for having me.